Hey everyone, this is Josh back with Cardboard Chronicles. Today I'm speaking with Steven, a collector from Boston, also known as S. Howley 2003 on Instagram and blog. How's it going, Steven?
Good, buddy. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. We stepped away from the Patriots Packers game to do this. That's how important it is to you, right?
Absolutely. Definitely looking forward to talking some cards tonight.
Awesome. I wanted to mention that Steven always posts like this really awesome Instagram posts every Friday when he's watching my videos, watching the channel with his beer and his big screen with the channel up. So I appreciate that. That always makes me.
Absolutely. I definitely wanted pour a beer for tonight, but it's 11 o'clock out here on a Sunday night in Boston, so not a good time to start drinking.
Yeah, we need to.
Work early in the morning.
Okay, gotcha. So why don't you just tell us about yourself? Give us a little introduction. Tell us about your history in the hobby and all that fun stuff.
Cool. Yeah, so I, like a lot of the collectors that I run across, are in my mid going on late 30s now, 37. Collecting was one of my primary hobbies back in the day. Just running the neighborhood, filling up the backpack, cutting through the woods to the other neighborhood, planning how I was going to get, this card or that card. I've always been a set collector, so back in the day, it was a lot of chasing the insert sets. I happen to have collected right in that window where I was a little too young during 86, 87, but I was kind of out of it and into girls by the time like 96, 97 plus rolled around. So I missed a lot of the good stuff. But we just spent days just going down to the card shop, ripping packs, hoping to hit that Jordan or spending the extra money on some Skybox Emotion or something like that, and just ripping through it. And so like hit late high school and just kind of faded out of it. Went off to college, and ironically enough, I was listening to sports radio back in like 2011, and the guy that I was listening to was talking about how he had gone onto Amazon and bought like some 1984 box of baseball, whatever, right? And like was just like ripping it with his son, reliving his childhood. And I was like, damn, that sounds like a good idea. So I went home that day on Amazon, and for like 25 bucks got a box of 92, 93 Stadium Club, which I just back love. It's just, I mean, there's no border to it. It's glossy. I just loved it. And I came home from work and I ripped it and I hit my first ever beam team. It was a Kevin Malone. I don't even know who the dude is. I'm sure Adam, the 27 guy's thinking back, and he probably knows who he is, but no clue. And I get to the very last pack and I beat the odds and I hit a Jordan beam team.
Oh,
And I
nice.
remember just like being like so giddy and no one would know. So like texting my friend, I'm like, remember I told you to get that box? Look what I hit. He's like, oh, I think I still have one. And that kind of led me down a rabbit hole of picking up cheap boxes to like from my childhood. So like 1990s, 91, 92, up through like 95. I would just bust boxes, put together the base set because I couldn't ever buy that many packs back in the day. And then I started this binder of all the Celtics team sets as well. So if I got doubles, I'd put all my Celtics. And I actually put a picture up on Instagram. It's like a 4-inch D-ring binder of just
Yeah.
like Celtics cards from like 1972 up through today that I've spent way too much time organizing. And that was kind of my deal. And then I decided I was going to treat myself, and I got this right here.
Oh,
I
sick.
don't know if you can see it. It's the Bird Johnson rookie.
Nice.
Um, and I wasn't planning on getting into collecting, but I was like, you know what? I got this like Celtics thing going. I'm kind of having fun. Let me just pick that up. I just want one. I've always wanted one,
Yeah.
and I got that. And I was like, okay, Paul Pierce is my favorite player. So I started researching Paul Pierce rookies, and I grabbed a few boxes of 98, 99 finest, and I was like, wow, Paul Pierce has a lot of rookies. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to get all of them. Um, and I have almost all of them. I think I counted tonight. I think I have 86 unique Paul Pierce rookie cards from
Wow.
inserts, autographs, everything. And that led me to the boards, to the Beckett boards back in the day. Met guys like T Barn and Jay Marchand. Um, Came over to Blowout and just sort of been following it ever since. And that's how I kind of got back into it. And now my big thing is rookie cards. So I have the first chase was a rookie card for every Celtics player that has their number retired, which is way too many if you're a Celtics fan. It's just, I mean, they retire everybody's number. So I completed that when I got my Bill Russell rookie card a couple of years ago. And then I transitioned over to any Hall of Famer who ever played for the Celtics because that helped me diversify. So like guys like Gary Payton, Dominique Wilkins, Shaq, guys from 48 Bowman that I'd never heard of, or different guys from 61 Flair, et cetera. So that's sort of my primary focus is the rookie cards, and then I have a couple PC players. I think people know that Jay Crowder, if you followed me on Blowout, Jaylen Brown, Paul Pierce. But that's sort of my deal is following through with the rookies and kind of following the history of the Celtics through cards.
So my next question was, what do you collect? And I still feel like I don't know because you're in so many things. How would
Yeah.
you, or what, what's the reason for all the different things you're into?
Um, so I collect what I like, right?
Yeah,
Um, well, Paul Pierce. So my main focus is always rookie cards. So I have some Pierce stuff that's not a rookie card, but it was really going all in on all his rookie cards. Jay Crowder, like just because I'm a fan of his. So back when he was playing at Marquette, Big East basketball was on like Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, like just every day, every week rather. He was coming off his year. He just, Jimmy Butler had just left. He was kind of like his team, and I just grew to like his game.
yeah,
So he got traded to the Celtics in the Rondo trade, and his rookies were dirt cheap. Like I could go on and like as a fan get his cards and get stuff like the Immaculate Acetate RPA, which was out of 9 for him. His Prism Gold, NT RPAs, like stuff that was chase cards for the other big rookies, but I could get, for my collection and kind of just amass this massive Jay Crowder rookie collection because I'm probably the only one that like actually collects them, right? So I mean, and it got to the point where just like my Pierce one, I've kind of chased as many as I can. So I've got like his exquisite 101 auto,
wow,
which college uni, but I followed him in Marquette, so I'm like that's a pretty cool card for me, and capped it off last year when I got his NTRPA logo man, which was a pretty sweet gig for me. And people have reached out a few times since then to try and get it out of my hands, but I won't let it go because if I do, it's like, well, that's the key card in my Crowder collection. If I get rid of that, I might as well get rid of all my Crowder
sure.
cards because it's all or none. And then Jaylen Brown, I don't know. There's just something about him. A part of it was um, I remember watching a game. It was 5 or 6 games in the season, and he just had this explosive dunk, like just leapt through the roof. And that's not the type of guy that the Celtics ever draft. And I was like
Yeah,
watching that, I'm like, I'm into this dude. And then he's got some social justice campaigning that he does, and some awareness campaigning that I really appreciate in the Boston area. So I just sort of started following him as a player. Um, and I like to have a modern player on my team that I'm collecting because I think it adds another edge to when I'm watching the game because I'm
sure.
hyper focusing on their skill development and where they fit in the team and I got in on his stuff when it was dirt cheap and it blew up last year and I made some money off of some of my duplicates and pretty much financed what I had just by selling a Prism. Like I got a Prism, graded it, it came back a Prism Silver 10 BGS 10, sold it for way too much money, you know what I mean, and covered the cost of a lot of the big cards I have of his. Um, so yeah, that's a really roundabout way. I know I'm kind of throwing a lot at you, but it really is. It's just sort of the focus of the following my team and being able to kind of track the history of my team and then have something that's live and in the moment to collect as well.
So what are you doing with Jayson Tatum then, given his, prices?
Laughing at the cost.
You're just not collecting him?
No, I'm not. It's just, I mean, I've picked up a few singles. I did when the market went way down on him. I grabbed a couple of Prism Silvers. I will not hesitate to sell them. I have one card of his. I actually hit an Optic Hollow autograph card, which I think is one of the best autograph sets for the rookies this year. That came back rated a BGS 9.5. I'm going to keep that because I hit it, and if I hit a card, it stays with me. Like I just
Sure.
think that adds a whole new level to it.
Yeah,
Um, but I would much rather put my money into finishing off some of these Hall of Famer rookies that I'm chasing than hope that the Tatum cards continue to go up because they're astronomical in my estimation right now.
sure.
And there's so many of them produced these days that it's tough to say exactly what. And he's hit a wall already, and I think people are already dumping a bunch out there. So
But as
I'm
a
staying
player,
away
I'm
from it.
assuming you like him as a player, given your
Oh yeah,
Celtics fandom.
yeah.
Just
He's dynamic, but as a collector, I'm not. I can follow him and root for him and think he very well could be the best offensive player in the Eastern Conference after Giannis in a couple of years. But as a collector, I don't want to put my money into that because I just don't have any connection with him.
Sure.
There isn't that drive for me. And if I was buying his stuff, it'd be in the hopes of selling it down the line, and that's just not my primary focus.
Gotcha. So you have a bunch of cards from all different eras. You've got, you mentioned like 48 cards. You've got modern cards. You've got sort of like the 80s and 70s and 90s. You got everything. So is there something in relation to like the history of the game that kind of drives your collection and, keeps you interested and keeps you connected to the game?
Well, okay. So I actually bought. I know the glare is horrible right now. I don't know if you can see that at all.
Yeah, we can
So
see
this
that.
is yep. So I actually picked up my second 48 Bowman today. Actually, it should be get shipped out. This is the first one I ever got, and I got this because it was the first ever national release basketball card. 1948 Bowman was it. A couple years later, and then they didn't produce them afterwards. They got sold to Topps, and then Topps waited till 57, 58 to do another basketball release. But I'm into it. Like I remember getting that card and being like, "Damn, my grandmother was like 20 something when this came out. Like what was going on? You know what I mean? It's not even just that. That was the NBA wasn't even the NBA at that point, right? That it was just forming. It was I think the BAA they called it or the BBA, and you had these teams that were the Lakers were actually near a lake. You know what I mean? And the Jazz were actually, where jazz music is. You had all these teams that were just forming, not existence yet. And to think about what was going on in the league in our country at that time, and then to have an artifact from that I could pick up and just like have that's connected to this sport that I'm so passionate about, just really kind of echoes with me. Um, and then also, it doesn't hurt that as a Celtics fan, the 50s and into the 60s was when they won 11 out of 13 championships. So, like a bunch of their retired guys, I think I have a stack right here of like 7 or 8 1957, 58
Nice.
rookie cards, topped off with
Oh,
the greatest winner of all time right there.
what's the grade on that? Dude,
5.
that's
Yep.
nice. That's awesome.
Um, so to have these players that were just and not grant they were playing 6 or 7 other teams in the league. It wasn't 30 team. It wasn't LeBron and Michael at their prime.
Right.
But to have cards that were printed of those guys back when they were doing what the Celtics are known for having all those championships, just really kind of sets the groundwork for my collection. Then to learn every time I get a card, I research the player too. Like when do they come to the Celtics? What were they drafted? I don't know if you've looked into like the draft rules back then. Of there's basically, and somebody that knows way more is gonna shake their head at me. But there's basically like 2 drafts where you had your local kids that you could draft and you had more control over them, and then you had your full nationwide draft. And Red Auerbach seemed shady as hell, and he could just manipulate it and bring in guys like Tommy Heinsohn and Bill Russell at the same time. And the whole story of all that stuff fascinates me, and the architecture of it and how these great teams came to be and the history of the Celtics versus the Lakers going I mean, it goes back to then, and it just went decade after decade, blowing punches at each other. And I just, as I get the cards, I read more about it, and it sort of drives my knowledge. So.
I feel like that's something that we sort of like forget about and it gets lost in the hobby, especially with like the modern stuff with just how much stuff they're printing, like I feel like the separation between the hobby and the game keeps getting greater with the modern stuff, and like you said with the older ones it gets you to like research and like learn more about the history of the game, which is what I think we need to do more of in the hobby, especially back then when you only had one card to choose from. It's like
Right.
you're collecting for the player, not for all these like crazy parallels and all this stuff, right?
Yeah. Yep. And it's and when you think about and then you think about like how the players stayed with the team. I mean, but it's also a different sport now.
Sure.
It's tougher to be connected to the players. It's tougher to be connected to the teams, I feel like. Um, but I do also feel like there's a lot of people that collect that maybe aren't as much of a fan, and we know there's obviously millions and millions of fans that aren't collecting. Whereas I feel like back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, there was a much larger connection between collectors and fans, and they came together. They talked about the sport, they talked about the stats, and they used the cards to drive that.
Yep.
As opposed to we now use the stats to drive the price, right? And I miss those days of sitting back and like talking about like why I was chasing Alonzo Mourning and not Grant Hill and Shaquille O'Neal and comparing that. And it wasn't about because I wanted his cards to be more valuable, or it's because no, I'm learning about his team and the coming out party in the playoffs against the Celtics with Larry Johnson and him, and why I didn't think Grant Hill was going to be as powerful. Now I was wrong. Grant Hill, if he stayed healthy, would have been a much better player. But you used the cards and you looked at the stats on the back and you looked at where they were drafted from, and you brought it together, and the cards in the sport went together as opposed to where the hobby's at today. And I just think I like going back to that older time and like looking at the stats and reading about the players and being connected through the cards that way to the sport.
So with the modern stuff, are you more picky then? Like I've seen, you've got a lot of the shiny stuff. Like you and I were just
Yep.
talking before. Like we still like the shiny stuff. So
Yep.
some of
Still
the
like the
newer
shiny stuff.
cards, they look a lot nicer than the older stuff. So we still have to kind of like, grab some modern to fill that void. But I guess you're just more picky there.
I'm more picky about the players. Like I have to have a connection of the player that makes me want. Like that's why when you asked about Jayson Tatum, like I love him. I hope he pans out to be the top 10 player in the league that people projected him to at the end of last year. I think that's great. But there's nothing about him that makes me want to collect his stuff. It's more like I have to get. I like the underdog type of players. Like for a while I was chasing Terry Rozier. I ended up
Yeah,
selling off a bunch of his stuff just because his first start last year he had a triple double and people went crazy, and I just kind of threw some stuff on eBay and sent it on its way. But there has to be something about a player that says, you know what, I like what that guy's doing. I want to go grab a rookie card. And then once I do, it can all go downhill from there. So you know, once I got a couple of Jaylen Browns, and I was liking his game, and they weren't that expensive. I happened to sell a few things, and his gold prism popped up, and I was like, oh, let me take a shot at it, and I got it. It's like, okay, now I've got the gold prism. Now what other cool stuff can I have? And now it's then that's where sort of that completionist comes in. Now I know I'm not going to get everything of his. Like I actually don't like the 2016-17 and NTRPAs, so I just have not gotten them. I didn't like the design at all, and I'm never going to be able to afford one of his rookie logo men. So like I know I'm not going to complete or even come close to it, but I want to get as much as I can from his rookie year.
sure.
So once I get a player that I want to collect, slippery slope. But if there isn't anything that makes me take that initial jump in, then I'm just watching the games and enjoying the sport.
Sure. So next topic, you're really active in the community. You're on Instagram a lot. We chat on Instagram. You're on Blowout. What is it about being involved that gets you excited about the hobby? And is there something else that you get out of being so involved?
I go on all the time because if I talk to my wife about cards, she just rolls her eyes at me, right? No, but it's being involved is really what makes it enjoyable, right? Like,
Sure.
and I had a conversation or a little back and forth on one of the threads the other day, a couple weeks ago, with someone that was posting. They're on Instagram now, posting this intense Carmelo Anthony collection, right? And I can't stand Melo. I just think I have no use for him. But to see someone that jazzed up about their collection, I can relate to that, right?
Yep.
And so that having that being able to have that conversation and respect that collection, while like if I never saw him step foot on a basketball court again, it's like this odd dichotomy. So being able to connect with people, talk about it, and then um, when I first got into the hobby, the guys over in the Beckett forums back in the day, they taught me so much about how to check prices or what sets are out there, or like even what's going on in the hobby. I hadn't opened a pack of cards, in 15 years. There's also part of me that wants to give back too, like share some of that information. But the more people I meet, the more I learn. We are always learning things, and I just like being part of that community. I don't know. I mean, I know without the internet, I wouldn't be into the hobby the way I am because I just wouldn't have the information base or access to it. But without the back and forth and the personal connection to other collectors, like the guy, Jason and yourself and all the guys that I've touched base with, I don't think I'd be that, energized by it either. It'd be just like a pile of pictures of guys, and especially when you're at the point where like some of these guys are younger than you, it's like, ooh, that's kind of weird sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's about the hobby itself, and you need that connection to others in order to drive the hobby, because it's not a hobby a hobby you do by yourself isn't really a hobby. You have to have something more that you get out of it. And so really being spending the time. I never thought I would have gone on to Instagram, but I actually think it was maybe you talked about in one of the first videos, and I was like, wow, I never even thought of setting up my own Instagram account just for cards because my other hobby is mountain bike, and so I had one just for mountain bike, and I was like, oh, I can have a second one just for cards, and like since I've done that, it's been a game changer for me. I barely post pictures of cards on Blowout anymore. I just go in for to be part of discussions, and then I can share my collection on Instagram. It's easier, it's quicker, it's more feedback, and I
Yep.
really enjoy it.
Yeah, with like the way apps are on our phones, we could just switch from Blowout back to Instagram so quick that like
Yep.
they're almost one and the same at this point. We
Yeah.
talk to the same people, and one's better for photos and one's better for threads. So
Absolutely.
I sometimes like when I get mail days and stuff, I have like my little setup over here where I look at my cards and I look, I get a big mail day and I look at it and I'm sort of like when I'm by myself, it's like enjoyable for a few minutes, and then it's like now I gotta text all my buddies and send them pictures, and then it's like, oh, now I'm really excited, right? As opposed to
Yeah.
just me in my cave like staring
Yep.
at pictures.
Yep. And there's nothing. I think there's nothing better than when you get something, and somebody asks a legitimate question about it too. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like it's
totally.
cool when other people get jazzed, but like if it's something they hadn't seen or they were thinking about picking something up similar, and like
Yep.
then you get that back and forth, and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I just was able to engage with someone because I posted a picture of a
Yep.
picture.
Yeah, the galactic questions I get are my favorite right now. Like I don't even know that much about them, but people, are starting to associate me with them, and it's fun to like talk back and forth just about that one
Yep.
set.
Yep. Fantastic cards.
Oh yeah, they're very shiny. How many have you
Have you
picked?
have you? What's that?
How many have you picked up now?
Not many. So I've got three. So going back to I got a Smart and an Avery Bradley, neither rookies, and then right
Sweet.
away when they first came out, I got a Jalen Brown Galactic. Just because I've been on Revolution just as I said, I go back to my days of being a set collector. I just think it's a gorgeous set. It's a smaller set. Um, Hobby boxes are relatively inexpensive. You get on card autos, so if you hit one, you happen to hit some nice stuff. So I've put together the base set of Galactic every year since it came out. And so once I saw, not Galactic, sorry, Revolution, but once I saw the Galactics, I was like, now that's cool because just like you said, it's not serial numbered. You don't know what's out there, and they're gorgeous. They're just, and especially that first year. What got me in that first year was it didn't say Galactic on the back, so you had to sit there. And
Yes.
I don't know if you've got one in your collection. I haven't looked at all of yours, but they're not as defined of a graphic in that Galactic shimmer as the other years have been. So you really have to take a look at it and be like, am I seeing what I'm thinking I'm seeing? It's not as stark of a crispy Galactic look. It's sort of more rounded, and it fades into the background a little bit more. So I just thought that was so cool. It's like, do I? Yeah, oh, I got one. Yep. Um,
It's kind of like the first year of Finest Refractor, 93 when they didn't have
yes,
refractor on the back.
I remember opening Finest Baseball and doing that. Like, is
Yeah.
it? It would go outside. Would go outside,
Yeah.
hold into the
It's
sun
a
to go
refractor.
back and forth with them. Yeah.
People post the scans where it's like you're not quite sure if it's a refractor.
Yeah. It's like, is that the light hitting it wrong, or is it just flat light?
Right.
Yeah.
So before you told me you had a family, and you also mentioned that you work 3 jobs. Can you just tell me about that, how that affects your hobby, and you know, how you use that to maybe help pay for the hobby? What's that about?
Yeah. So full-time gig is I'm a school psychologist at a high school. Been a career that I've been involved with for about 10 years now. Other job is part-time tutoring, which is a private gig, so it pays really well. So that's sort of my wife and I sort of supplemental rainy day income. And then my third gig is I've just ever since in college worked at ski and bike shops. So I'm a public school employee, get summers off. So I'll do wrench work, bike tune-ups, repairs and stuff over the summer, and that's my piss away money, right? So I'm passionate about mountain biking, and then I have this hobby with these cards, and so whatever I work over the summer, if like today I spent today, I helped the shop put on a mountain bike event. I'm gonna get I don't know 150 $200 for it. That'll go into my bank account, and if I see something cool on eBay, whether it be new bike tire that you could probably care less about, or new Galactic that you'd be really excited about, and I have that flex money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, um, and just having that spare income, wherever it comes from for you, I just think makes things a lot more enjoyable because it's money my wife doesn't ask about. It's money that I'm not expected to pay out. And then I have the other jobs that we can balance out, and we can make a little more with my tutoring job if need be, or if we're doing all right, we can take a little more time off. So just allows for that balance of having a set income and then just add a little extra side money.
That's smart to separate your card money, I feel like.
Oh, you have to, or it can end up in a dark area pretty quick, right? If you don't if you're setting it aside, you know exactly what you have and what you've put out and taken in. If you
Yeah.
don't set it aside, it can get clouded in with all the other stuff, and either um, I mean, I don't think it's bad to think you don't have money for cards. I think that's pretty healthy. But you could also think, oh, I got a little extra, or I haven't spent as much on cards recently, so I can afford this, and then maybe you can. I mean, I think you really have to delineate. I look at cards as something that I'm not going to recoup a lot of money from because I don't plan on moving them. I do, like I said, with stuff like Terry Rozier when he blew up last year, or the 27 guy will laugh when I mention Isaiah Thomas because I sold a card literally 5 days too early to him. But when Isaiah Thomas blew up, I did move all my Isaiah Thomas stuff and made a good chunk of change. But I bought them because I liked the player and I had the money to do so. And then when they, became valuable, I sold them. But the other stuff, like I don't plan on ever moving my Paul Pierce stuff, even though I do have a rookie Ruby. I have some rookie autos. I don't plan on moving my Bill Russell anytime, my Larry Bird rookies. Like I bought those to have them and enjoy as part of the hobby. And so if you don't delineate your money, it's just you gotta kind of be careful with it.
Plus, those older guys, like their careers are locked in, and you don't have to worry about some giant
Yeah.
spike or giant crash.
Yep. Yeah, they seem to the true Hall of Famers seem to just creep up a little bit every year. I think more. I think I paid probably 200 for my Bird rookie back in the day. It was a lesson learned. It was a BCCG 10. I was like, oh, it's graded Beckett 10. Must be great,
It's
right? Yeah.
perfect.
Gross. Learn that lesson quick. But I paid probably $200 for it. It came back. I crossed it over PSA as a 7. I actually looked before this just out of curiosity. I think the last PSA 7 sold for around 300. So I mean, it's gone up a little bit over the last 6 years or so, but it's not. But it hasn't had major spikes one way or another. And I think a lot of the true vintage stuff is in that direction of small incremental gains over time.
I have a question about vintage because I'm sort of like dipping my toe in it. I haven't bought anything yet, but I'm sort of just looking at it. I feel like when you buy vintage, you're just like, that's sort of it. Like you just have it. You know what I mean? Like if I would want like a 61 Wilt, like I would
Hmm.
just buy it whenever I want, and then I have it, and I'm done. There's not really like this chase or you know what I'm saying?
Well, I do know what you're saying. And so for, part of the chase is when do they come available, right?
Yeah.
So I bought another I mentioned I bought a 48 Bowman today as part of my Hall of Famer collection. There's one more Hall of Famer, Andy Reason, that I have to get. His stuff never comes up, especially already PSA graded. So 48 Bowman, I'm hoping for stuff in the PSA 3 to PSA 5 range. That's probably what I can afford. So it's looking for it to come up, and then what's the price point? Is it for auction? Is it a crazy buy it now? But then the other thing that I don't get into that some of the vintage guys will get into is buy what you can afford, but then there is massive difference in prices from just one grade to a next.
Yeah.
So the difference in a Russell rookie from a PSA 5 to a PSA 6 is massive. So then it's about, can you buy something now, really enjoy it, but what if one that's just all white around the borders, just has that deep color that you want, and nice white around the borders, that's one grade higher? Have you maybe gotten a little incremental gains in your 61 Wilt now that you could sell that and then buy into the higher copy one? Um, Not my style, but I think that's the other thing is people kind of looking at when can they upgrade their version. I'm more into picking some of the vintage sets that you really like and picking up some players and learning about those players, right? So if you like 61 Flair because Wilt's in it, there's some really cool cards in that set. That's a great set. There's some great Hall of Famer rookies. Some of the stars from back in the day. Um, I don't know if it's not an insert set 'cause it's part of the base set, but they have their base card, then they had sort of their highlight card of their dunks or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'd be more like get a Wilt, and then what other plays from that year have a really cool 61 card that I could pair up with that and kind of have a little small pile of 61 Flair cards.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I just need to buy one just to see how it feels.
Just test the waters.
Yeah, with
Test the
maybe
waters.
like a cheaper, a cheaper guy or a low grade or something.
Yeah, and I would definitely recommend, like 61 Flair, you can't go wrong with. I don't think you can go wrong with 57, 58 tops, just because it was sort of what kicked off the hobby. There's some really cool stuff from mid 60, late 60s. Some really funky stuff from the 70s. Some really ugly sets from the 70s. Some great photography from the 70s. There's really cool tall boys. 69 tops is a tall boy card that I think is some of the ugliest ones out there, but I got a bunch of them. Um, because they fit my rookie Hall of Famer collection. So it's really about learning about, take some time, look at the different sets that are out there, see what you like the look of, follow some players, but
Yep.
and just give it a try.
What else you got, man? What other cards do you want to show and talk about?
Um, so I'll show. So I brought one. I brought one for you. It's one of my only LeBron James cards, right?
Nice. He's
So I'm
paired
not
with
a
your guy.
yeah. So I'm not a patch guy. So if I'm gonna get a card like this, it has to have a connection. Um, so right, probably like 2013 or so, LeBron gave an interview of the five toughest people he's ever had to guard in the NBA,
I remember
and
this.
Pierce was one of them.
Yep.
And then about a year later, he named Pierce as his number one rival in the league because people were asking about Kobe, and he was like, "No, if I've got anybody, it's Pierce." And I think Pierce is a little underrated in the league. I don't think people appreciate his entire game, and he gave LeBron fits, and LeBron really does credit those Celtics for kind of pushing him to be the next step. And obviously he, had that big take off his jersey and leave Cleveland moment with him, and then he came back with the Heat, and really just destroyed them, himself in those two final games. So having a car, so there's got to be a connection. The fact that there's a connection between Pierce and LeBron really, jazzes me up. Um, I'll show
I
this
feel like
guy
I need
up.
to get a. I feel like I need to get something similar to like reverse the. Like I have the LeBron connection to those
Yeah.
Celtics teams.
There's there's not much out there. There's not much out there. I mean, especially with LeBron, being upper deck for all his autographs and stuff. I think Panini doesn't do a very good job of showcasing. They've done a better job, I think, showcasing them. But I think from like 2011 through like 2014, they didn't showcase them. Not. I don't love all Panini stuff, anyways. I'll show this off. This was my first. I don't know how well you can see that.
Pretty well.
So this is Finite Spectrum. This is out of 25. This is my first super short print PS rookie that I got.
Nice.
This was a set that at the time was a major investment for me, and I did a ton of research. Super sensitive on the grading. I thought I had a shot at an 8, which would have been a huge grade for that card. But they're very sensitive. And then I'll show off one more before I'll just. And then I love oddball cards. So I don't know if are you familiar with these acrylics?
Yeah, I know I've seen this set.
Yeah. So I think this is one of the coolest sets because it so goes against today's cards, right?
Yeah.
It was a wrapper redemption that you just collected a bunch of wrappers and sent in, but you could ask for any player you wanted. So there's a ton of Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordans out there. You get some oddball dude, or D Brown wasn't that odd. He was a big Celtics player back then. But you get like one of the coaches cards or something, it could be worth a ton of money to the set collectors because who's going to ask for like,
Right.
the fifth guy off the bench or a coach card or something. So I love oddball cards like that, and I love picking that type of stuff up too. So, and I have other cards here. I guess the last set that I'll show is just to highlight.
Nice.
These are the Hoops autos.
Oh, wow.
I can go on a rant about how underappreciated the early 90s autograph cards are. I mean, there were no sticker autographs back in the day. You had to hit redemption cards. And you were talking about players that were in the prime of their time. I will take this card any day over an NT or flawless Bird Magic auto. I don't. To me, an auto once they're retired just doesn't do a ton for me. So to be able to get cards from players when they were in their prime, there's beautiful, exquisite David Robinson cards, but I would pick something that was out that isn't as appreciated or loved as much. So,
So
those early cards.
Explain those
What's
cards
it?
really quick. So those are cards
So
that they
they were.
autoed on card in
Yeah.
person after.
No, these are the real deal. So these were you hit a redemption card in packs, and I forget the odds on them. I'm sure someone out there can comment on the video. But these are the real deal. The problem with them is that these are base cards, right? So these cards came in packs. This was a one card insert. This was another one card insert commemorating his 5th year in the league. He was a spokesperson for Hoops. So there are a lot of these that are signed in person after the fact. So you really have to do your work. Like a lot of the Bird Magic ones will be in blue ink. So from what I understand, the blue ink ones were all done after. Some of them you can tell. You really have to reach out. I was on Beckett back in the day when I picked these up, and I did a lot of work reaching out to people that had multiple copies, because one of the things that's really difficult is you're not going to be able to see it on the video, but there's an embossed Skybox logo in there, a stamp. Well, Flair went and sold those stamps when they went bankrupt, so people were able to go buy the stamps, take these base cards there's millions of them, put the fake stamp on there, and then go to shows or go to games, whatever, get them autographed, and then sell them, and they almost look identical. But obviously they were then autographed 10, 15 years later, so the players, the guys had changed their autograph. They're a lot older. But yeah, these were redemption cards that you hit in pack, and you had to send in, and they were super, super hard to hit. And I can't tell you how many Hoops packs I opened back in the day hoping to get one. So when I had the chance to pick them up, I did that, and they're top 15 cards in my collection, just because my tie back to my childhood and how underappreciated I think they are in today's hobby.
Yeah, I'll admit I knew nothing about that, so that's a fascinating story that there were even redemptions. That I feel that's more of a modern thing, but I didn't know they even did that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, somebody's had a thread on Blowout about it. There were a couple different redemptions autos from back in the early 90s. There were, I believe, Pack pulled a whole Carmelo Flair Ultra set. There's a lot of underappreciated autos from back then, all on card, from players in their prime.
Awesome. Well, if you don't have anything else, we'll wrap it up.
That's what I got for you.
That was great, man. I really appreciate you jumping on and sharing all the stories.
Absolutely. It's great, talking cards, and I really appreciate you having me.
I can't wait to watch you post an Instagram of your own face on your TV. You better do that.
See, I was thinking about that. I don't know if I can, because I hate watching myself and listening to myself. Like I do public speaking through my job and stuff, and like I'll never go back and like watch it or anything. So maybe I'll pause it or mute it or something and just like toast us, with a beer next Friday night or something.
Well, either you do it or I'm going to do it. So I mean, I'll even recreate. I'll get my beer and I'll recreate your Friday picture.
There you go. I'll leave it up to you then.
Okay. All right, man. Thanks.
Thanks, man.